So now to module 2, the necessity of aims. Before we immerse ourselves into this second module, let's just do a quick recap of the first module where we look to yourself. So the primary thing here was around our thinking patterns and our thinking habits, and also about how we sort of talk to ourselves around that self-talk, that dialogue, and the power of words. So we now know that our thoughts lead to our feelings, lead to our actions, and lead to our results. And we also know that we can build this skill of self-awareness, really understanding about how we're thinking and the way we choose to think. We also know about the things that we do create a feeling, which then can create certain thought patterns, which again will result to our actions and our behaviours. So the key thing here is really starting to understand the way we think, and actually, is the way we're thinking really empowering us? And having now this skill of self-awareness, giving us this choice to think a certain way, especially when we're facing challenges and adversity that are out of our control. It's our perception of them, and then how we face that adversity and what we do by the way we think and the way we act. I introduced the feeling buttons, the states that we can go into, and becoming more aware of them. Watching, pressing that blame button, that excuse button, maybe that self-pity button, or that rationalised button, or denial. Very important to be aware of these states and actually getting a clear understanding about where they could take you and what the consequences could be. And then really pressing that personal responsibility button, responding to the situation on how you want to respond to it. Even sometimes that situation might not be your fault or out of your control. You have that freedom of choice to respond by taking that step back, by taking that deep breath and thinking a little bit more with clarity instead of going through impulses. And then the truth mirror, I mean, this is the one that I use all the time, is holding the mirror up and being very truthful and asking, what is it about me that I'd like to change? What is it about me that I don't like to see in the mirror? And having that face it to fix it first, and then addressing it, and then start taking these small actions to address those things around behaviors, maybe habits, maybe these insecurities, like I was talking about my confidence. Start to really take that, again, ownership of facing it, and then we can fix it. So lots of things to think about, and again, that create that self-awareness from module 1, and about look to ourselves. It starts with us, that self-truth. We can draw that line, and then we can start moving forward. So that brings me on to module 2, about moving forward. And now about progression, about looking outwards, because once we can understand the inward, now we can start looking outward. So before I get started, have we got the priority wheel and the outline and necessary tools? Again, if you've got them printed, that's great. If you've got them on your laptop or your iPad, again, that's a great way of learning. Or again, if you just want to watch the video, get an understanding it and come back to the tools. Very simple tools, and will really, really help you start understanding the importance of aims and what are the necessary things when you start to specify them so you can move towards them. So first of all, let's start about why. Why is it important, or why don't we have aims? There's been lots of research about how people don't have goals and do have goals, and how people who can really specify their aims become very successful, and the importance of it. There's also the reason about why we don't set them. Maybe because we haven't been shown how to set aims and set goals or objectives. Maybe there's that fear of failure. So this feeling bit, this emotion bit comes in. People don't set themselves like goals to work to. Maybe because they failed before and it feels a certain way. So they start to dismiss it and don't really define what they want. A big one was for me was ridicule. My friends used to always laugh at me and go, oh, John, you're setting your goals again. You've got all these tools on your wall. So again, that feeling of ridicule, not being part of something, is, again, can really knock us back and decide that actually these things aren't important. And that's, again, some people just don't think it's important. People just drift through life and, taking it day by day. So everyone has their approach, but it's, it's vitally important to progress, know where we're going to. And if I take my story, so after I came back from hospital and I sat and thought about actually what caused this, or what's one of the causes around my thinking, that was great. I got an understanding of that, and I could now choose the way I wanted to think and start to change my dialogue. But then how do I move forward? How do I start to progress? How do I start to recover, gain strength, gain that resilience? And I went on this journey again of finding out about goals and aims and the importance of this continuous progression, raising your standards sometimes. And that's where I started. My first aim was to walk to the end of my garden, which is only about 30 yards. But this gave me some real clarity about how to progress forward. So I set myself a small aim, and that was just to walk to the garden, to the end of the garden, and was my first priority. That's what I really wanted to do. And I'll be honest, I failed on a number of days and I was really down, but I carried on going because there was something that I was working towards. And then when I got to my garden, I felt great. It was this sense of achievement. Again, this feeling came about me saying, I can do it, I can do it. And then from the garden, I then extended my aim to the local shop, and I walked to the local shop. It took me a few attempts, and I came back, and sometimes I felt really disappointed with myself. But the key thing is that I had something to work to. So I started again, I reset and restarted, and I got to the shop. And then it was a walk round the block. And gradually, through these small aims, I started to recover. So that was my own experience about setting aims and really having it as a clarity about what I want to do. So the why around aims is quite important, about moving towards something. So I also feel that the aims we have in our life give a feeling of control. It sort of brings us together. It sort of unifies us around something. When you get up in the morning and you're working towards something, whatever that is, you feel more in control because you can visualize sometimes what you're working towards. So having aims or goals or objectives, whatever you want to call it, I call them aims, something I can aim at. It's one of those key things. I always say if you haven't got something to aim at, how are you going to hit it? So it gives me a sense of control when you have certain aims, something to move towards. One of the key things as well that I've realised is it stops us what I call drifting. It stops us just aimlessly going through the day and have nothing really to work towards. And we have short range aims and goals, and we have mid range and we have long range. So sometimes we can drift for so long, and time is so precious because we're not really understanding what we're working towards. So drifting. Now I understand that creativity wise sometimes we can daydream, and it's a brilliant way of bringing that creative thought. But how many times have we just drifted through the day or drifted through the week, or we look back on a year and go, where did that year go? And what did I really maximize my time? Was I really efficient with it? And once you start to get this aims and understanding the importance of it and how to do it and having the tools to do it, it can give you that control, but it can give you that focus, what I call clarity, working towards something. It can raise that energy as well. It keeps us moving forward. Progression, step by step, little steps, working towards something, I feel is so important. Because when you get there as well, at the end of the journey, you have this sense of achievement, this feeling comes out. And you can think, well, yeah, it builds your self-esteem, your confidence, knowing that you can get somewhere. And, the journey sometimes is hard, and you take your knockbacks or you get distracted, but it's about keeping on the path and working towards that aim and keep moving forward, even if it's a tiny step. it doesn't matter because you're progressing forward. And yes, sometimes we get knocked back, but it's about, okay, so I'm still working towards something to keep moving forward. I really do believe having aims, goals, gives a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose. And this is probably one of the biggest things that I've got when I've gone into looking into goals and aims and then adopting them to myself, is it gives me a sense of meaning. I'm working towards something, and it certainly gives me a sense of purpose. So some of my purpose is to, really help people and share what I know, and that's become an aim of mine, and that's given me a great purpose, and the feeling of achievement is so important as well. So if you really start thinking about aims and goals, it starts to create a meaning in our life, and if we have a meaning, it becomes important, and then that can start to move us in the right direction, and it gives us this purpose, something to aim at, something to get up in the morning or look at the end of the week and say, okay, so what's my purpose for the week? Okay, I'm going to achieve these goals, make these promises to myself. So this module, again, the power words, these things that I say to myself, these quick wins that are immediate, is specify your aims, know what they are, and then you can put your plan and you can start working towards them. You have clarity, it brings purpose, it brings meaning. It stops this drifting of time. Like I said, time is so precious. It's a commodity that we can never get back. But once we can start to understand where we're heading towards, we can start to be more focused. So specify your aims. Specify is a great word. Get it into detail. Have real clarity and vision of what you want. Becomes such a powerful technique, especially when you link it into the first module about how we think, and we can take that ownership of our thinking processes and the way we talk to ourselves. We can then start to really get an understanding of how important it is to progress forward. So I'm going to go on to the next video. I'm going to introduce the priority wheel. So if you get chance, this is a working tool, and it will really open up about the priorities in our lives and the importance of it, and around setting aims around it. So if you've got that printed off, that's brilliant. Or if you've got that ready on your screen, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your focus. And I'll see you on the next training video. Thank you.